Why should you watch the Monogatari series? I mean, the short answer is because it's incredible. The longer, but still kinda short answer is this. Monogatari is a truly unique artistic experience in 3 aspects. It's a unique storytelling experience, it's a unique animation experience, and it's a uniquely Japanese cultural experience. If you are someone who enjoys art and entertainment media, this should be the big sell for you. The Monogatari series pushes the boundaries of these 3 departments in a way that's clever, engaging, and, entertaining. Let's start with the storytelling experience. I mean, we all like storytelling, right? As a species, storytelling is ingrained in our DNA from thousands of years ago, telling stories by the fireside, to the modern day, where we tell My Hero Academia self-insert fanfiction stories on Wattpad. But that just goes to show that a good story can be told in many ways, in many forms, and in any medium, whether it's spoken word, written literature, live-action film, or animation. And if you want the best story told in animation format, watch the Monogatari series. I mean, Monogatari literally translates to story. But I bet you've heard that a million times, right? Watch this anime, the story will get you hooked, or watch this movie, you'll be on the edge of your seat the whole time. Well, Monogatari is unique in its storytelling in that it doesn't really feel like a cinematic story, or even something with a clear beginning or end, or some kind of 3-act structure. Instead, it sometimes feels like a tale you tell to your friends, or sometimes like a joke. As Araragi would say, and now for the epilogue, or rather, the punchline. Monogatari tells its story as a series of calculated reveals up until a climactic, or sometimes anticlimactic punchline. Kind of like how a joke has its setup, Monogatari will tell us certain things about its world and characters until things finally click and that punchline drops and we all laugh, cry, or just stare dumbfounded. Sometimes all 3. Everyone who is a fan of the art of storytelling should watch Monogatari for this aspect alone. The way the author Nisio Isin spins the narrative as a series of twists and turns told in an incredibly meta way is something that you need to experience at least once, even if it ends up not being your thing. But hey, story is great and all, but Monogatari is an anime, right? So what's the animation like? Well, let me show you 2 examples. They're pretty different, right? But both are a showcase of the strengths of Monogatari's animation. One shows the raw and visceral side of the animation that comes out during some of the show's brutal fight scenes, and the other shows the more artsy, cerebral side that plays with viewer perception and breaks the 4th wall. And to me, what makes animation such a great medium is just the fact that you can do things that you can't do in live-action film. And to me, the best animators and directors take advantage of this to showcase their creativity in a way that's wholly unique to the medium. And that's what Monogatari does. It'll use everything from completely different animation styles, random cutaways, and even live-action segments to highlight what's happening on screen. To go even further, Monogatari's animation adds unspoken elements to the show that can't be shown through narrative or characters' actions. For example, the famous character head tilts that characters do that mean, well, who really knows what it means, right? If you're a die-hard anime fan, I'd take a wild guess and say that a show that takes full advantage of the medium of animation would sound pretty appealing to you. But if you're not an anime fan, Monogatari would be a great showcase of how creative and expressive the medium could be. If you're from the West, it might be a bit of a culture shock, but nothing you can't get over if you approach it with an open mind. And speaking of culture shock, that leads to my final point. You should watch Monogatari because it's a uniquely Japanese cultural experience. I'd say that like 90% of Monogatari is dialogue based. I mean, it was based on a light novel after all. But what makes it so engaging is what the author Nisio Isin does with the Japanese language. In the same way that reading Shakespeare and Hemingway can show you exactly how far the English language can take you in terms of storytelling, watching Monogatari and seeing Nisio Isin's mastery of Japanese can really help you see how nuanced the language is and how great storytelling can be through a Japanese cultural lens. If you are even a little bit of a fan of anime, this is something I think you have to experience to understand why anime is such a uniquely Japanese medium. Now, you might be thinking, well, I was on board with you, but now you might have lost me. I mean, I'm from Milwaukee. I don't even know where Japan is on a map. And I guess you'd have a point. If you don't understand Japanese, it's very hard to get the full experience of the show, but I would argue that being kinda lost and trying to figure out the stuff that goes over your head is part of the fun. I mean, even Japanese people who speak Japanese have a hard time figuring out what's going on in Monogatari. But the magic of entertainment media and art is being able to experience these different cultural lenses, even if a lot of it goes over your head. Whether you're an anime fan or not, whether you even care about Japanese culture or not, the Monogatari series is one of those artistic experiences I don't think anyone should miss. After all, who doesn't love a good story? A story about a crab recovering from her traumatic past. A story about a cat crushed by the expectations surrounding her. A story about two vampires bound together for eternity. It's all really great stuff, and honestly, I don't understand why people don't want to watch this show. I mean, what could possibly be putting people off from taking in this one-of-a-kind artistic experience? Oh. That's why.